not a very complimentary thing that we hear Jesus speaking about in regards to this generation. But what he's talking about is how fickle people can be. That when John the Baptist came and was very rigorous and very disciplined, people said, oh, he's possessed. And when Jesus came and was eating and drinking and welcoming tax collectors and table fellowship, they dismissed him as well. And it goes to show that oftentimes, if we're not careful, we can dismiss what God is doing when He is working on our hearts. We'll come up with some particular reason to say, no, that's not the right thing to do. But we hear specifically in the first reading, where God says through the prophet Isaiah, I, the Lord, your God, teach you what is for your good and lead you on the way you should go. So it takes for us the discipline of John the Baptist, that is, that willingness to have our lives be crucified in a way. That is, to give ourselves over to penance. But then at the same time, it also takes us to accept the liberality and the graciousness of God's mercy, which is what Jesus embodied. We want to have both. We want to have that willingness to say no to whatever it is that leads us to sin, and say yes to the means of salvation that have been given to us, of prayer, of fasting, of almsgiving, of the sacraments, of devotions, things that set us on the right path, things that keep us focused on our eternal salvation. This Advent season, we keep looking at the coming of Jesus, His second coming, His coming to judge, and we ask Him to make us ready for His coming. We ask Him to help us to be attentive to that reality of the last judgment, so that we can be attentive. But we want to make sure, too, that we know if the Lord tells us to be rigorous, to be rigorous. And if the Lord says, okay, now set the rigor aside, to set it aside. That is, to keep our hearts focused on what God is saying to us. An example of this would be the children at Fatima. They were told to do penances, and specifically to pray for the conversion of sinners. And yet at a certain point they went a little too far, and Our Lady had to tell them to not hurt themselves, but to offer up what it was they were offering up in terms of their daily difficulties. So we want to make sure that our hearts are also focused on God and His Word leading us in the way of salvation.